following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View. The People's View is a show sponsored by the Nashua Republican City Committee. The committee meets every second Thursday at the Crown Plaza. And if you want to contact us, we have a website, nashuagop.org. And at the end of the show, you'll see some contact phone numbers or email addresses that you may want to send us your comments and recommendations. Thank you for listening in.
Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello, and today we have two people from the county who are running for county offices. And right now we have the Commissioner, Sandra Ziehm. Commissioner, how
Always a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you.
People probably get tired of hearing my hot air, but
well, no, I don't think so.
Well,
I think you got a lot of common sense up there, and I guess you can tell us how the county's running. I haven't really seen it as close as I did 2 years ago.
Well, we hope you'll get to see it closer this next coming.
Okay.
I'm hoping that we will bring. In this state, we always seem to be the two extremes, either 75% Republican or 75% Democrat. And as you know, my view is the more balanced we are, the healthier we're going to be.
Right.
So I would love to see us at least have a better balance than we have currently, because. But this has been a good, in my view, this has been, we do have a tax increase, and I guess the public may not like that. I'm sure I don't like it. But I think that you get what you pay for. And I say this on the school, you know, if you want good education, you have to pay for it. And I think the same thing is true with county services. I mean, people know that we have the Valley Street Jail, we have the nursing home, we have the UNH Cooperative, we have the attorney's office, we have the sheriff's office. So we have a lot of county pays for a lot of services, and traditionally we haven't had to call on the taxpayer to increase our base. Very little increase in county. County, in my view, county runs very efficiently, conservatively efficient, I would say to you. Going back to once before, we talked about the 5 layers of accountability that you have at county, because our budget goes through 5 layers, and every one of them is miserable, but it's effective. Miserable because when you're...
a lot of review, and you bring out a lot of points, and you have a lot of discussion, and looked at it from different people, right? I mean,
it's amazing when you think there's absolutely nothing you've missed. I mean, you've looked at it so much, it's coming out of your ears, and somebody will come up with something that you didn't even think about. So you're absolutely right. Different eyes, different ears, hear different things and see different things. And I wish that I could say the state was as healthy in their management as I think the county is. Yeah. And so I would love, this time I was very intrigued, I would love to have run for executive counselor. My husband, unfortunately, has been very sick, and I just decided...
That was enough. I mean, you're doing the Board of Education also, so how can you stretch yourself that thin, especially if you have some personal issues? And
the question comes into how effective are you going to be if you do too much? And I don't want to do an injustice. Truthfully, I don't. If you take on a job, you should do it.
That's
and
right.
if you're not going to do it, you shouldn't take it, because it's not fair. It's just not, it's not fair.
Well, what's the biggest change? I mean, I saw what happened when the budget that actually the commissioners wasn't sufficient, and the executive council added a little bit to it.
They almost added back in everything we took out.
Oh, really?
So I tried to, they had said to me, and we had a wonderful chairman this time. I thought he was wonderful. And he had said to me, please be conservative. Please come, we don't have money. So there are so few places that we can cut, but every one of them, I said, all right, this is what he wants, this is what I'm going to do. And a lot of them, they put right back in.
They did.
So, for instance, UNH Cooperative, you will remember that last year, UNH level funded. Well, this year, any increases that they've had, they brought back to us, and they wanted us to give it back to, to their raises, if you will, because it's mostly manpower at UNH.
Right.
And I voted not to give it to them. We didn't agree to give it to them last year. I actually made the motion, and it wasn't because I don't think UNH is a good. They're all good.
Yeah.
I mean, there are none of the things we do that aren't good, but I like to think that you live within your means, and if you can't afford it, you don't do it. But I think there were people that felt so strongly about the UNH cooperative that they put it back in, and so it wasn't a lot of money. Cumulatively, though,
it all added up.
It all adds up, and we're going to have counties raised this year will be like 4%.
Really?
And that's, I think, for many, many years, we have not seen that large an increase. Now, the public shouldn't get overly concerned because, as you well know, that 4% doesn't relate to 4% on their taxes. It relates to 4% of the total city budget, if you will, and so it's much lesser amount.
Total county budget.
But again, it's cumulative.
Right.
It's if
It'll
you
be there the following year, too.
Well, and we are whittling away. The county has always had this, we've always had extra money in the bank, a reserve, if you will. And that reserve is, we're putting $3 to $5 million every year into our...
So you did that again, too?
We did that again. And you can't continue to do that indefinitely. At one time, I think the county had like $50 million.
Right.
We're down to like $8 million.
Okay.
So, and of course, that represents like 2 years, and then we're going to be in big trouble because that money that's being subsidized will have to be made up by the taxpayer.
Right.
And if you added $3 or $4 million to our budget on top of increased cost of living, then cumulatively you will be talking
Well, I guess I
sizable.
have two questions. How are you doing on the contracts, the labor contracts? Are they coming up for review again, or
We just renewed almost all of them.
So they're good for 3 years? Or
We
not?
did, yeah, most of them are good for 3 years. I think there's one that's outstanding, and I thought they were very reasonable. We ended up like 1 and 2% was the average, if you will. The sheriff's department got a little bit more because we had had a stalemate with them for quite a while, and we turned it over to the negotiating, and we resolved our differences to some extent.
They had zeros for a number of years.
Yeah, for a long time. So even though they got a little more than the others got, cumulatively they would have fared better, in my view, had they taken the 1 or 2% every year. I mean, how many years at 1 or 2% do you have to lose before you have lost sizable money? And so I think that in my view, they would have been better to take a little bit every year. But hey,
and the benefit packages have been all right.
County's been. I think we do we actually have been trying to educate our employees so that they would be conscious of how they can impact their costs, because if they impact our cost, then we can do better by them.
Right.
See, we've had to increase what they're contributing because health insurance costs, as you know, have just gone skyrocketed, and so we actually, I wish the school.
Would follow the same.
I wish the school negotiated as well as we do at county. Again, I don't think we quite do the same job, but everything's in the eyes of the beholder, and consensus rules, and I've learned to be.
Well, is there any good things coming on? Increase income somehow?
Well, I was saying to you before the show, I'm actually very excited, and the reason I would like to be reelected, the reason I think I can be valuable, is because because the county has a lot of property, very valuable property, as you well know. And currently, we have a freestanding building in front of the Bouchard building, which is where we house our administrative offices. That whole building is empty. Then in the Bouchard building, we have half of the whole upstairs that's empty. Plus, we have an old barn, which has the high, it's very rentable. It's income sitting, and those have been empty for years.
Right.
Best I can make out, at least 10 years. And I think we're making progress. I think that we might actually be able to put them with a realtor and have them advertised, have them marketed on a 24/7 basis, because 10 years of anybody would be bankrupt. You and I could not sustain that kind of a loss. So I'm excited that and actually I was just talking to the county administrator today, and he said that within 2 weeks he thought he would have all of the legal documents, because of course what we will have to do is we'll have to go out and have at least three different real estate companies, commercial real estate, come in and give us bid on how they want to list the property, what they charge us for commission, what they think the property is worth, that kind of stuff. And then we will sit and look at the three and decide which one we think is the best value for our dollar. And then we'll pick one, and minimally you give those people 6 months. But I tell myself, if they've been empty 10 years, even if we sat with them empty another 6 months, at least we'd be doing something different, going back to the adage, you know.
Well, so you put this together as a package.
Yes.
It's all of it. And does that include leasing any land, or just the buildings that you're talking about?
It would just be the buildings.
Okay, because
and
there was
I was
some
just
talk
thinking, he had said to me, Mr. Wenger had said to me, you know, well, would you give them all three?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, we'd put them all because they'd be in the MLS. But another idea is we'd give a different broker each one, and then we'd be dealing with
Let them have a little fight?
a little competition is healthy. Not only that, but all three of those companies then would know
about the others,
about the whole
thing.
And so that's an interesting, and I hadn't even thought of that. So it goes back to your comment about extra eyes and ears, and the more dialogue you have.
Well, if I remember correctly, 2 years ago, too, there was some land that was closer to the village that what you were thinking of leasing. Or is there some land at the edge of your property?
Well, they're thinking about, in the back, they're thinking about opening it up as a recreational. They're thinking about making, it's beautiful fishing back there. I don't know if you ever went back there, but my husband's a fisher, so when he went back there and saw, it's very nice. Yeah, it's lovely, it really is. And so they were saying that we could bring in companies that might add to that dimension, if you will, and open it up.
Have a county park there, if nothing else.
That kind of thing. But interesting, so of course, you know, if they move the prison, the women's prison that's there, that they now have said, it must be 4 years now, right? They started out saying it would be 5 years, so we must be a year into this. Yeah. So in 4 years, we are supposed to lose the women's prison.
Right.
And I think we get like $20,000 a month for that prison. So picture that if we lose all of the reserves and we lose that income to boot, we could be in big financial trouble in 3 to 5 years. And so I would really, for the sake, that real estate needs to be, something needs to happen.
And it's not too early to do it. I mean,
definitely not too early.
We've been waiting quite a long time, and I think I hope it works for you.
I just went in. I had not been in because, you know, they don't let people just walk in and out of, I mean, it is a prison. But because of the fact that it's coming available, they did make it available for us to look at. And I went in, and it was, I'm just so glad that I've gotten, it's so hard to think about it when you haven't been in. And so it's an old building. It's depending on what they do with it, it could have some major improvements needed.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, it will be interesting trying to find out highest and best use, because what is the true value of that? You know, who's going to buy that? And
why
for
not
what
go
purpose?
to the immigration department and see where they can, there's something just for their people that they have to hold, where they're paying different jails to hold.
Are you talking about now these?
No, not the kids, not the kids. No, that's another problem that I can't see our federal government solving. No, they got us into it and they don't know how to get out of it. But you know, the illegal ones that they now pay other county prisons to hold until some of these people can have a hearing.
Well, we have at Valley Street Jail, we have
Right.
we have 70, I would say, around 70, 75 that come from other counties that they pay us to house them for them, and it is a good way for us as a county to balance our costs, because
Well, yeah, I see using that, but I was thinking that the women's prison, you could hold a lot of these people who are very, I guess, non-dangerous necessarily, or separate them. Put the ones that you think might have a little problem in the Valley Street Jail, but put the ones that are just waiting for their hearing or deportation.
the crowding in that women's prison, though, Carl, I couldn't believe it.
No, I don't mean immediately.
Yeah,
as soon as the women leave, you have the whole unit until...
Yeah, go in and do what you need to do.
Maybe we'll get a president in there in 2 years who thinks something like this would be proper. The whole, whatever they do, they have to do something with immigration. It's terrible. And you know, one of the things that bothers me is they don't look at correcting the current process for processing these people for their citizenship or deportation. That is the thing that holds up a lot and costs them, the country, a lot of money. But if we gave them a unit, how many women are in there now? A couple hundred?
Yeah.
You know, you could have that.
And they're so crowded. You know, I have to tell you that those women have, and the shower, I couldn't believe how cramped. I have to tell you, I was dumbfounded. I mean, I had read the papers, and I knew that crowding and that, but it's one thing to read it in the paper, and it's another thing to go there and see that you have to stand in line to get into the shower, and of course it was just, and it's very cut up, and the walls, it needs, I would call it a handyman special. Is what I would call it. And I guess the question is the value of that land greater than the value of the land with the building on it? And that's something I think they're going to need to spend some money. I think they need to, I would be happy, any expertise I have in real estate, I'm happy to contribute free, obviously, as my commissioner's responsibility. But commercial is, and highest and best use is, in my view, the most, it calls for the most expertise. And so, it is the most important thing that you do in determining how to market it and how much to sell it for. If you overprice a product, it doesn't sell. And the longer you sit with it empty, the more you lose, especially we're now getting $20,000 a month. So I'm concerned that down the road, county could, I'm hoping that there will be some wise judgments made that will alleviate future concerns for our budget, because it all comes together. You know, I mean, the county is in the real estate tax bill.
Yeah.
It's there for sure.
Oh yeah.
So
well, is there anything that's happening at the Valley Street Jail? Is that running? It was running very smoothly when I left.
He does such a wonderful job. David Dion is our CEO, or our, and he does a really wonderful, in my view, wonderful job there. And you know, they're passing, they have some law, you know, they're trying to change some of the laws. It's ever ongoing changing laws. But one of them is that any of the any expenses that are incurred under $5,000 will not have to go before the legislative committees, because that way they will save. Every time you meet, you have to pay for gas for all of those people. And so if they can eliminate some of the meetings, they think that they may save some money that way. And so we need to be fiscally sound. We need to make good financial decisions. And I tell myself, if this was your building, and when I think about it being my building empty for 10 years, oh, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. If I have a building sit empty for 2 months, I get sick over it.
You gotta do something,
because I'd rather give the money to somebody who needs it than sit with it. It's idle money. It's just a waste. It's just total. So I'm hoping that that we're going to make progress.
Okay, and the nursing home. That's the other big thing that's in it.
We got 5, I don't know if the last time I was here I told you, but we just got 5-star rating.
Really? Great.
And I have to tell
know
you,
it's run very well.
Oh, I'm so proud of that nursing home. I tell Mr. Moorhead, who is the chief operating officer, save a room for me, I'm coming. And keep it just as nice as it is now. You can eat off the floor. I mean, it's clean as a button, and you never go there. And the food, the man who runs the food service there takes great pride in his food, so the food is wonderful. He also has a social director. He has, all three. He has services for the Catholic, service for the Jewish, and service for the Christians. So all three, he has a preacher come in for all three of those services every week, and they have crafts. They have crafts once a week, and in the summer they have a band come in outside, and the people can go out and have a glass of tea and listen to the music. To me, I think that's wonderful because just because you're old, quality shouldn't go. There should.
And the rehab program that was being expanded when I was there.
We made money this year. This is a true story. I'm glad you brought that up, Carl. We actually made $1 million more. It was a little over $1 million more than we budgeted to make.
No
That's
kidding.
how well those rehabilitative services have done.
I imagine the people are happy for that too.
So we got both of those things this year. So I would have to say to you, the nursing home is I'm very proud of them. I wish I could take the credit. Unfortunately, it wasn't me.
Well, no,
but
the operation, you're overseeing a very good operation, I think.
Yes.
Most of the people that I met there were really trying to do something right.
The only thing that I grieve for is our county attorneys are so overworked that sometimes you will have to wait 2 years to get your day in court.
Oh, no.
Let's say you're a rape victim and you have to wait 2 years to go to court. It's too long. It really is, but we can't afford.
Another attorney, is that what they're trying
we'd
to
have
put
to
in?
hire, I think, more than one to do away with two. It's some of those cases, and they have a lot of violent offenders. This year we actually went to security at the registry. So because we had to, because the county attorneys, some of the people they go to court against are violent offenders. I mean, they'd kill their own mother. Oh. I mean, I know that sounds terrible, but that is the case. And so they think nothing of threatening these attorneys. I mean, and if you were the attorney, would you be afraid when you've got these people who've already killed somebody threatening to kill you? I think it would be of concern. So I tried to follow it very closely because I kept saying to myself, if anybody got hurt, how would you feel, Sandra? You didn't move fast enough. You didn't do enough to protect them. And so, but it's hard. Public buildings, some access they have a right to. Right. And so it's a very, and we're even now working on it as we speak.
Well, have you noticed over the last, say, 5 years, an increase in this type of problem?
I personally believe we've seen an increase in the violence. I don't think, they say it's an increase in crime. I don't think it's an increase in the number of crimes. I think it's an increase in the intensity of the crimes that we're seeing. People are committing more things that you would just never. I mean, I can see, that people get desperate for money and they go try to rob the local 7-Eleven, and I can see, but then when it rises to the level of they're so desperate that they shoot the man behind the counter and walk away and say, well, so what? Who cares? That is alien to me, to think that's, I don't know. So, and I think that's what we've seen. I think if you pick up the paper and read, even somebody who is not familiar with what goes on in our courts, you can't help but pick up on the fact that it's more violent than it has ever been. And you saw Chief Susing wanted to hire new, I mean, he said he needs more. He can, and the drugs have.
That's here in Nashua, but county-wise, it's the same thing. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yes, actually, you would think that the little small towns, but that's not the case. It's everywhere, and I think proportion where it's mind-boggling. Very, we are the Northeast. We're the capital, the Northeastern drug.
Really?
That's what I was told. So, well, they come to Massachusetts, and of course, it spills right over. I mean, we're right on top of Massachusetts, and probably they consider us a little I hate to say it, but they may consider us a little backwards in comparison.
That was the word I thought you would say.
I didn't want to say it, but
No, I think they like the country too. They might be growing things up here that we don't like.
It's amazing though the death, and I really think our economy is still people are, and
well, that's what I was drawing. That is the economy the thing that's going to cause a lot of it. If it perks up a bit, and I don't know what you'll get any new companies come up to use your facility there, but it could be if we just turn it around.
The Telegraph had an article that I thought was it was an editorial, but basically they were saying that if you don't have enough residents, citizens who can afford to buy product,
right,
then no matter how well you develop the product, if you don't have a market for it, it's going to flop. So ultimately, if we can't keep our people employed, if we can't provide jobs so that people have quality of life,
right,
then it will affect our whole nation, state, city. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think that our quality of life is diminishing. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right, and I think that's what we have to do in this election. People have to be aware. That's the first thing. It's the economy, stupid.
And that's why I think Hampstein will be so good for governor, because he's a businessman. Because he knows that at the end of the month, if you can't pay your bills, you're out of business.
Right.
At Harmony Real Estate, if I don't pay my light bill, I'm going to be embarrassed when people ride down the street and see there's no lights on. They're going to say, "What's the matter with that girl?" So I have to say that having a business person, somebody who really understands the cumbersomeness of government, of getting permits, of getting zoning approval, all of the things that...
Well, there were a lot of things that we started in the 2010 to 12 area that I understand just have been stopped. We were supposed to have one-stop offices so that you go one place and you talk about all the permits and rules and regulations and everything. And I don't know what's happened. No. And well, let's not get into the governor. We'll wait till we get the governor candidates on, and we'll talk about the issues there. But you do have to turn around the whole state, the county, to get it rah-rah, bring us in, bring new people in, bring new facilities in.
New jobs.
What they're doing here up in Nashua on that Spitbrook Road development's good. And you're going to do that all over. But
now see, we're finding that's going to add to our load on the school, because there will be children, obviously, in our schools, class. Well, obviously it increases the tax base.
Yeah.
But they don't always increase our base when they increase the tax base. And that's another story. We can argue about that all night.
We're going to take a break now. We're going to come back with the other candidate from the county.
Okay.
And we'll talk about the Registry of Deeds and continue on some of these other problems.
I look forward to it, always.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll come back in just a minute.
Welcome to The People's View.
Hello and welcome back. This is joining us now is Howard Coffman, who is a candidate for the Registry of Deeds. Howard, tell us why you're running for the Registry of Deeds against an incumbent.
Hi, Carl. Good to be here. Thanks for having me. Probably because my skill set really fits the job pretty well.
Oh.
I was interested in public service. In the past, I had run as a state rep, came pretty close here in Nashua. And then actually I was speaking to Sandra one day, and we were going down the list of what jobs were out there or what positions might be. And we talked about state rep, and then I think her hat flipped over to county commissioner and said, you know, the Register of Deeds is another position that's out there. Maybe you should look into it. So then I started researching the position, and I realized I actually have the skill set that is appropriate for that.
Good, good. Tell us a little bit about your background. What skills have you developed that fit in?
Well, I'm a project manager by training and by trade, mostly software development projects, internet projects, publishing. And it's a high-tech office.
All right.
So you need somebody who is familiar and comfortable around technology. Interestingly, I had also worked at a Kinko's as an assistant manager for production. So I'm familiar with the large size scanners and printers and then anything that you'd need to archive or save, big sheets of paper, which is kind of what they do at the registry.
So you'd be really familiar with the equipment type and the software that's necessary to run it most effectively.
I adapt quickly to new software, having developed a lot in the past, and I still enjoy using computers.
Well, the facility is here in Nashua, and there's always been talk about keeping it in Nashua, but there are other places that are available. What do you have any ideas along that line?
Well, I know one of the things I've done once as part of my research for to decide to do this is I've gone back in time. One of the nice things about a public official, there's usually a paper trail, except in the case of IRS and Lois Lerner. But in our case, with the commissioners, they publish every 2 weeks. They have a meeting, they publish those. So I've gone back about 18 months. So I've got that somewhat fresh in my mind, and that's been a topic of discussion, is possible moving the registry office from downtown Nashua up to the county complex.
Right. Well, as you know, as an elective office, you're put in place by the people, but your budget and everything has to go through the county commissioners. So Sandra's going to be one of your bosses if you win.
But we were talking before the show about it. It's not when I think of a boss, I think of somebody who has the ability to fire me. And so I'm ever walking on that little tightrope, making sure that I do and say exactly what that boss wants me to do. The difference at county is that, of course, you are elected by the people. So it is only the people who can fire or hire you. And so it's that was one of the hardest things for me to get used to, because I had no perception of that, truthfully, going into that office. Well, and it was one of the things.
All the things that you're responsible in the county government, they're elected. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them are elected.
Well, and yes, and
county attorney,
and the sheriff. The sheriff. Well, of course, Sheriff Hardy's been there for years, and wonderful sheriff. I certainly have but it was one of the hardest things for me, because again, my mentality, my thought process is that if you're the boss, they're going to kowtow. Well, of course,
they don't.
You don't have any of that power.
Well, it's all about collaboration and persuasion.
That's right, exactly.
Persuasion, what a wonderful word.
Well, trust me, I've been in the various jobs I've had is lots of authority. Excuse me, I have had lots of responsibility and no authority. So you have to create an environment where people will engage and do some work essentially on your behalf without being their boss or having any influence over their daily schedule.
And one of my things is, yes, well, the political process is interesting, to say the least. One of the things that I've had, and I've heard Bill O'Brien talk about this, and Pete Silver, I've heard him on this show, People's View, and I've heard him say the changes he would like to see up in Concord. One of the changes that I would like to see is that some of these positions have qualifications. To hire somebody, for instance, at the registry, you have 24 employees, 18 employees. So if you come into a position where you have 18 employees, but you've never had one employee, and now you have 18 people, and you have to make them work together as a team. Or even if, for instance, one of the things, the sheriff, he has people working for him that make less money than him. More money, excuse me. A lot more money. They just gave him, by the way, a 3% raise this year.
Really?
Because
Finally?
actually, yeah, they gave him one bigger than the others. I think he got 5 now that I think of it, because everybody else got. But anyway, he got a higher raise because he hadn't had one in years. But it's just the politics of all of this stuff is very interesting. I think that if you are, even just to be objective, think about the treasurer. Would you hire somebody to be the county treasurer or the city of Nashua's treasurer who had never balanced their own checkbook? But that's what can literally happen, because there is no qualification that they have to meet, any educational standard, any experience standard, nothing. And so I think and even at the county attorney's office, you go in over attorneys who have been working for the county for 25 years as attorneys. They know the job backwards, forwards. You've never been in that office before, and now you're their boss. that is illogical to me. As a business person, I think we should, I really would like, if I had more power, I'd change that.
I see.
Well, you know,
Sorry.
when you take a step to do what I'm doing in terms knowing I'm going to manage, I hope to manage if I get elected, 18 people and manage the budget, you think about how to develop teams and collaborate. Well, the way I look at it is these people are professionals. They run that office. It functions. It meets its goals. It performs well. I'm there to stay out of their way, to enable them to do their jobs and deal with the exceptional things that come up that consume time that they shouldn't have to deal with. So, and then of course represent whatever the needs of the department are to the commissioners. And by and large, leave them alone to do the work they know how to do. And I'm not going to micromanage them. So if an employee is out there and you're wondering about me, I am not going to micromanage you. I could promise you that.
Well, and I think you are a studied person. I think that you are very analytical, and I think management, you need to be analytical. You need to study things. Like you've gone back 18 months. Yeah. And I think that says a lot about who you are, that you don't take it casual, that you're not going to let it roll. If it doesn't work out, you're going to let it roll off your back, but you're going to roll up your sleeves and look for solutions. You're going to look how to solve problems, not create them. And I think that's a big thing.
Well, thank you, Sandra. I really do appreciate it.
Well, you know that you have my encouragement and support.
Well,
absolutely, no question. I'm even going to give you a check. I promise.
Okay. Well, if I win the primary, I'll take the check. If not, you can hold on to that
okay.
for now.
But you said something earlier about being able to recognize software improvements and stuff like that. Do you think that that's something you might be able to bring to the job?
I don't know as yet. My guess is it's a process-driven function. There's a certain process that has to be followed to correctly bring in a deed, record it, and make sure it gets archived properly. So I think it's going to be more about process and making sure the right software is in place. I know Sandra was telling me earlier, because I had a question about one of the expenses in the budget, and it turns out they've really gone out there and acquired a pretty sophisticated piece of a package that does the scanning and the archival. So I might become familiar with how it operates, but from what I've been told, it really does the job. They've already done a good job of
and think about how old some of those documents are. I mean, you're 1800s. I mean, some of those documents, and every year they have to try to treat to make them last. I mean, 200-300-year-old documents are pretty old documents, so it requires very special expertise. They even have an organization for people. Paul Bergeron, I know, belongs to it, and he has shared with me. You might want to talk to him, by the way. He's a wonderful source, and he belongs to an organization where they study the care of precious documents. So it's an interesting. It was an area I had no expertise in, and still not as much as I'd like to have. I'd love to go and study it.
There's a line item in the budget specifically for preserving the old books and rebinding them and making them so they'll last.
That's one of the considerations you'd have too if you had to move from one building to another, is how you set that up.
If we did that, I would like to see us come into the 20th century, for lack of a. Obviously, industries evolve, and obviously we have a lot of. I mean, that registry's been there forever. If we were going to change, I would like to see us go and study how to maximize the move. If you're moving anyway, then that's when you really need to look at everything you're doing and bring it to its highest level, in my view. But that's a political football that there are people who feel so strongly that they will never allow. I've had people say to me, I will never allow the registry to leave Nashua. The bottom line, though, is that the registry, people don't go to the registry anymore. Everything is done online.
Yeah.
And so I keep saying, you know, I would like to see numbers on this. How many people actually come in here to do this, and how many people do it online? And I know, because I do real estate, and I used to spend a lot of time in the registry. Now, I never go to the registry. I pick up the phone and go online or whatever has to be done. It's a lot easier than going down there and wasting all that travel time. So it's
well, I think that's one of the things you want to make sure, that the registry service is available to those who need it as easy as possible. And if you have a nice system that does that,
Yes.
you know, it doesn't matter where it's located.
From what I understand right now, the public has access to the documents in the physical registry building. If you wanted to access them electronically, there's a subscription
Fee.
there's a fee. It's a fee attached to that service. But if you came to the registry itself, they have I'll just call it a public access terminal. Hopefully I'm using the right terminology, but during the business hours, it's there, it's for you. And
No,
as far as I know,
you're-
they do not charge for public access in the registry building
No, they do
itself.
not. But, and if you think about it, though, it's a savings in the long run, because if you consider the time, for instance, if you live in Goffstown and you have to come all the way to Nashua to record a deed, or to do the title search, if you will, to make sure there are no liens that aren't being paid, then you got to come all the way to Nashua, do the work, and go all the way back. Whereas you can do it online 10 minutes. I mean, you just pull it right up, and it's so much easier. It really is expedient. Technology is wonderful if you know how to use it. I'm not very good at it myself, but
Well, and there are things about documents that are scanned which still allows them to be searchable. So that's one of the things you'd want to be sure that the system incorporates, and they're not going to mess that up. They're selling a package to a registry for a specific purpose. My software background, I'll trust those software guys to get the requirements right. Now, if it doesn't work, that's a different story.
the company who does that is called Fiddler. Do you remember that, Carl?
Yeah.
Fiddler used to be Connor & Connor, and I think they sold out to this other company, and so now it's Fiddler, which is an interesting title. But it's, I guess it's like Fort Knox. You know, you can't just walk in there. but of course, they're valuable. I mean,
You can copy things, but you can't change things. That's the way you have to.
It's called Write Protect.
That's right.
Yeah, for those of you who might remember that.
So this is going to be a new experience for you then, huh?
It is. It's a challenge I'm looking forward to. I welcome the opportunity. It is a public service, and it's public funding, and there are real people that work there, and there are real people that their homes are recorded, their property, their life is there. And when you research something like this, one of the things that's really interesting to me is that there are historians and there are family folks who do genealogical research based upon the information that's held in the Registry of Deeds. So not only are you preserving, our private property ownership, which is totally foundational to the country, you also have the hooks and the history into how Nashua was developed, how the colonies moved in, and how they were settled, and then families that may have come over and can chase their genealogy through Uncle Henry, who lived on East Hollis Street and moved to Goffstown.
And during the economic downfall that we had in real estate, you will remember that one of the problems they had was that when they went to get these lenders to prove ownership, some of those lenders could not find the deeds. And so the deeds became, if you don't have a deed, you have no ownership. I mean, that's the bottom line. We have friends here in Nashua, they still have not found that deed. And so it was quite an issue during this economic downturn that we had. Hopefully we're almost out of that downturn. If God is good, please, Lord. But anyway, so documents like that are, their value is, I mean, you can't place a value on that.
The nice thing is having a background in the computer world, you understand data, you understand information, and you understand if it's important. Lois Lerner, you have more than one copy. And you have one here, and you have one there, and then you go off-site and you preserve it again. And that's what a reasonable, rational approach is. And that best practices is something they talk about in many different industries. One of the things I'm in the process of doing is learning what best practices are for a registry or document storage and subsequent retrieval. And if we're not doing it, then I would try to make our way to that, which is the 21st century approach.
They have a National Association of Registrars.
Yes.
And they have conferences 2 or 3 times a year, just like all county employees. And what I thought would be wonderful was if we indeed got to this point where we might move it, then we would be able to go to a similar sized counties and see one that had made this kind of a jump, who had gone from somewhat obsolete to present day technology, if you will, and just study how they'd done it, learn from their mistakes. And to me, then that would be where, see, I'm not a proponent of spending money on conventions, because they're not, sometimes they're expensive, and what you get from them is not always invaluable. But there are times, like in this case, where I think it would be totally valuable and certainly worth any investment you had to make, because I think if they've made the mistakes for you and now they can tell you how not to make them, then
well, absolutely. And here's where my value as a trained project manager falls right in. It's all about sequencing and getting your ducks lined up, getting one thing done before the other to make sure things are proper. And so I would certainly be able to add value. But I'm going to kid you a little bit, because I'm glad to hear your interest in the conventions, because right now there's maybe the travel budget is all of, or the training budget is all of about $1,500, and that's for 18 people. So we might have to ask for
I would
an
think
increase.
You're talking about the registrar.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have, well, of course, if you look at the whole county's budget, the other two county commissioners they belong to the National Association of Counties, which this registrar thing comes under. It's like an umbrella. And they go 3 times a year to conventions. The first year when it came up, I said, should I or shouldn't I? Is it worth the taxpayers' dollars? Because it's like $2,000 a trip. I mean, the one trip I went to Portland, Oregon. I only went once. I decided, the county administrator said to me, Sandra, try it. Go to one, see if you think it's worth it. So I did. I got food poisoning. I was sick the whole time. And this is a true story. And I said, you knew, Sandra, that you didn't really think it was worth it. And you went anyway. And this is the Lord's way of telling you you made a mistake. So needless to say, I don't go anymore. And I'm sure the other county commissioners feel they get value for it, and they give value for it. And so, again, that's their choices. But for me, I tell myself, if I were a taxpayer, would I want to fund Sandra $2,000 2 or 3 times a year to go on these trips? And I come up with a resounding no.
Well, maybe you got to look at what you can learn from it and make your judgment.
Well, a lot of that too, it's the networking opportunity to find the county that actually has gone through this. They might be sitting next to you in another seminar, or you sit down at their table, and that's where the value turns out to be.
And I had people tell me that they had been and had saved their county money because just what you're saying. They were sitting next to somebody who had some knowledge, and when they got talking about it, shared that knowledge, and they brought that knowledge back to their county. So that's why I say every person has to make their judgments.
Well, there's one for the state, the 10 counties in the state, they get together.
September.
So, yeah, so once a year, that is probably a way to start, and then you learn a little bit more about what you might.
And that one I find invaluable.
Yeah.
We have 10 counties in New Hampshire, and all 10 of the counties come. So you have the CEO of the nursing home for every county, the jails, the registrar, and so you get to, like, I talk to the registrars from all the other counties, and I found picking their brain to be extraordinarily valuable. And now, because I know them, if I have a question and I want a second voice on it, I can pick up the phone and call and say, hi, Gail, this is Sandra Ziehm, you remember me. So it can be, and I think that the other 2 commissioners are very involved on a national level. So I'm sure that what they do brings value.
Well, Howard, how can people find out more about you if they want? Do you have a website or a phone number?
Yes, my name, Howard Coffman. I think they can put that up on the screen.
That'll be on the screen, yeah.
And there's also an email address there.
Okay.
And as far as this campaign, the primary goes, the only help I'm really looking for are people to hold signs for me on primary day and to vote and tell people about my candidacy. Okay. If I do make it past the primary, I'm running against, this is an interesting sidelight. The 2 people I'm running against, the current office holder is seeking her 4th term. And then there's one of the people that work for her who's also running against her. And then interestingly, on the Democratic side, there's another person that works at the registry. So the current registrar has 2 people that work for her as a boss, running against her for her job. So creates an interesting situation. You kind of wonder, gee, that's very curious. I wonder what's going on over there.
Huh.
But as far as contacting me, it's howardcoffman.com. There's an email link there. There's the email at the, sorry, it's such a long name, but it's
No, that's not.
it's best if you look at it on the screen and write it down. My phone number's on my website. You're more than welcome to call.
Okay. So then they could find out if they had a question, you know, they wanted to know something more about you, that you could call directly.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'd like to do in the register position is to inform people. And it's funny you mentioned the other county registers of deeds. And I found some of them are a little bit more informative, like what the fees are. You know, the state legislature sets all the fees and taxes, but you won't find them listed on the Nashua website. So one of the things I would do is kind of just bring that information down so people would know. If you're copying, you know, 4 pages, it's whatever it is, $3 or $4 a page. And, you know, and by the way, folks, those rates are set by the legislature, not the county commissioners and not the registers of the Register of Deeds. But it's an opportunity for me to serve, and I think it's an opportunity to just make a service better. I'm very customer-focused, customer-centric, and educating people, and you know, I wonder if you could even have a kids program where they start researching, you know, the history of the town.
Might be nice,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
You know, pull the schools into it. You know,
They do that actually at Nashua High School South. Catherine Poulin, one of our teachers, wonderful. It's for advanced learn. It's a wonderful program. So you're absolutely right. And what an educational, hands-on kind of
life
stuff.
history.
Yes,
History was
real
somebody
life.
handled this book in 1872.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like it's really putting history in your hands.
Perspective,
And
yes.
I think that's a piece of the registry
an
that's
interesting
fascinating.
approach. Yeah, it is.
Fascinating to me. That
yes.
I'd have that responsibility of preserving it. I really look forward to that.
My wife got involved in that at one time, in genealogy, going through records, going around. That was some.
No, it's phenomenal, from the land grant and who got what
sure.
grant and who purchased, and then they went to New Hampshire and they had a farm and then they sold it off to the sons or gave it to the sons, and how that family evolved, you know, our founding families, if you would.
It'd be a fun thing for the people to do and learn at the same time.
The kids love it at the high school. I can tell you, yes, they absolutely. Well, they go out and see the actual house. First they do the deed,
I
then they
see.
take the
Field
deed and
trip.
go look at the house, and then they look at
they
who
walk
lived
the
there.
lot and
Yeah,
see
and then
the
they look at who lived in the house over the years and who were the affluent families and who were the politicals, if you will. Someday they'll be thinking about us. They'll say that darn girl was crazy. So.
Sandra, you are far from crazy. And she knows I admire her greatly. And she is a great lady, and I totally admire. Thank you for supporting this candidacy of mine. And but the work you do here and in the school is invaluable, and it represents a voice that is not always heard. So.
Well, both of you are very valuable contributors to the
Thank you.
society here.
Well, thanks.
And so are you, as long as we're.
We try to do our best getting people out there, because there's really no forum for a lot of people that's common and easy to get to communicate.
And
to
that's
other people.
education. That is educating the public.
right.
It really is. I tell people all the time, you don't have to agree with me, but at least you know what I think.
Right.
You know why you're not going to vote for me or why you're going to.
Yeah.
And that's the value of it. That they're not voting for somebody because it's a woman or because they're handsome or because they don't have money or have money, whichever be the case. So educating, I think education is such a vital part.
Yeah, and this forum is more to get you to speak about yourselves and what your qualifications are and how you're going to go, run for the office. We'll just try to get everybody out there and get a fair election, and then after the primary, and good luck to both of you in the primary.
Thank you.
Well, you don't have any problem.
You don't have a problem.
No, I have no primary. No
But,
primary. I've been very lucky that way.
That's because people respect you.
Well.
You know, so.
Well, anyway, this is the end of it. I just wanted to remind our audience that the Nashua City Republican Party sponsors this show. They have a fundraiser, the Stakeout, which is September 13th at the Crown Plaza. Go to our website at nashuagop.org and read about the details of that. and we hope to see you there. And you'll see a lot of candidates there,
Oh,
and you'll be able
it's
to
a
meet
wonderful
them hand-on.
opportunity to meet hands-on, to eyeball. I'm one of these people, I like to ask you and see what you're, see if I can read your face when you're
Right.
talking to me. And so it's a perfect opportunity for that. And
For all the representatives, senators, and
whole 9
executive
yards.
directors, and whatever else you want to look. Hopefully they'll be at our show.
But you do a great job on that, and I think it's a service to the community, truly.
Well, thank you.
Well, we appreciate you.
Tell your people about it and tune in. And thank you for listening in again.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.